Hey everybody, ronarray here, and after almost 6-month long wait, PoE 2 0.5 is finally coming. So today, GG released patch notes for Return of the Ancients, providing most of the info that we needed. So in this video, I want to talk about most important changes, how it will affect classes and builds, especially my builds from previous leagues, and as usual, I will also share my opinion about general direction of the game. Let's go! So first off, let's quickly talk about the general changes that will affect all the players. And GG decided to make Divine Orbs more common. That change could affect economy pretty decently, especially if more common is going to be more than 30% increase. However, since Divine Orbs are going to be more common, it's also going to affect the prices, because economy is mostly built around the idea of supply and demand. So tell me in the comments if you think it's going to change farm a lot, but in my opinion, it's probably going to lead only to slight rebalancing for some particular currency and prices of bigger things such as mirrors. Greater and perfect currencies will also be somewhat rarer, with transmutation and augmentation being made significantly rarer. It will lead to a situation when just transmutations will be a little hard to get, and since divines are going to be more common, I expect we will need to pay more divines from transmutations in general. But the only thing that's going to be affected by that is crafting. The biggest change for the economy comes from a different thing, which is the perfect essence of battle. It now will provide only +3 to level of all attack skills on two-handed melee weapons or crossbows. Previously, it's been providing +5. We've been using it in a lot of different builds. It's druid weapons, it's monk weapons, it's even Amadon weapons, so almost any build that using two-handed melee is going to be affected by that. I think it's going to lower how accessible the craft is in some particular situations, but I still believe that using perfect essence of battle for basic crafting would definitely worth it. Another big general change is defense changes. The biggest part of it is right now we will have more armor, more evasion and more energy shield on the bases. For armor, it's going to be 33% more in general and 15% more at level 80 plus bases, same for evasion, so 15%, and for energy shield is going to be unchanged at higher level bases. It's practically buffing evasion and armor all together, and I believe that in that case evasion hybrids is going to be more popular than just energy shield builds compared to what we've seen before. I also think that it's going to improve survivability for my druid build, because it's been using armor a lot and never relied on anything else, which is pretty nice. GG also decided to change a lot of passive nodes in the tree about the energy shield. So first off, it's convalescence, you will have faster start of energy shield recharge nerfed, it's currently 20% instead of 40%. And we also have Bastion of the Forest, so it's only 10% faster start instead of 15%. But the biggest thing right here, I think, is nerfing Adamant Recovery. Adamant Recovery been very important for a lot of builds. It provided increase in reductions to armor, also applied to energy shield recharge rate at 40% of their value. A lot of hybrid builds, such as hybrid druid builds, it's not mine, but some people play that, use that node to get recharge rate from your armor for your energy shield. But right now, that node is completely replaced, it's gone, so right now you'll have fortified ages there, it's just going to give you 100% increased defenses from equipped shield, which is going to be not that nice anymore. So I believe that change with Adamant Recovery and nerfs for recharge rate for energy shield is probably going to make energy shield based druids less popular compared to full life version, at least for melee builds. There's also a lot of other small nerfs for energy shield recharge across almost all patch notes. So like Core of the Guardian nerf, Dependable nerf, Devoted Protector nerfed, and I believe in general maintaining high energy shield at the moment going to be harder, and we can consider it at least slight nerf for energy shield builds in general. There is also another elephant in the room that we need to mention in terms of general changes. It's Leech nerf, and Leech nerf is actually pretty huge. So first off, only a single Leech instant per resource, life, mana or energy shield, can apply at a time, so you can have only one instance of Leech for all three possible options, one for life, one for mana, and one for energy shield. When multiple Leech instances for those resources will apply, only the highest will work. It means if you're hitting like 5 times for different amount of damage, only highest hit will Leech for you, which is a pretty big change compared to how it worked before. But on top of it, there's also now a limit on the maximum amount of damage a hit can be considered to deal for Leech. GG decided to make it 40,000, so hits that deal less than 40,000 total damage are unaffected, but if a hit will deal more than 40,000 total damage, it is treated as dealing only 40,000. So in that case, it's mostly going to affect Leech for high-hitting builds such as Comets, for example, and it will be significantly harder for them to leech their life or mana properly. I don't think it's affecting melee builds or half melee builds such as my druid. I think it will be able to maintain the mana just fine, but if you heavily relied on the Leech for your survivability, especially if you played like a blood mage, I think it's going to be a pretty big issue. Because maximum amount is very low, and 40,000 of total damage in the current Path of Exile 2 is a pretty low number, and personally I definitely expected it to be significantly higher. They also changed Unsevered Feast Timeless Jewel Notable, so it no longer grants 20% instant Leech, and instead you will have grants Leech Life 35% faster. So if previously it's been a very good way to get an instant Leech up, right now unfortunately it's not a thing. There's also some small changes with buffing Leech amounts, so such a thing for Vitality Siphon Notable, which is going to give you 20% of spell damage leeched as life, previously it's been 10, but since there's a maximum amount of damage that you can leech from, I don't think those changes are going to help you a lot outside of campaign, and especially in endgame when your damage is reaching at least hundreds of thousands if not millions, or even higher than that. And now let's talk about classes. Pretty unexpected, but there we don't have a lot of changes. First off, we got some nerf for Pathfinder, so Overwhelming Toxicity Notable grants 50% less poison duration, it's been 35 before. It's not that horrible, but it's definitely going to affect class in general. Also, Running Assault will grant 30% less movement speed instead of 50% less movement speed while moving, which is definitely going to affect Pathfinder in general, but I think most of the Pathfinder nerfs are hidden in the skill changes. For the Witch Hunter, for some reason GG decided to nerf Obsessive Rituals even further. Right now it will give you 50% less armor and evasion rating. Previously it's been 35% less of armor and evasion rating, so right now even less people is going to play that node. GG also decided to redo the Chronomancer, however right now it's kinda hard to exactly predict what's going to happen with the class. Chronomancer never been too popular, some changes look pretty decent, for example Sense of Time going to give you 60% skill speed instead of cast speed right now, so maybe there's going to be a chance to create like a melee Chronomancer builds at the moment. And they also changed phase from notable passive skills, they're like adding a new one, which is going to stay in front of footprints in the sand. Even if it sounds a little confusing, in general it's just going to be a way to mitigate damage and receive the damage later on when your defensive is up. It could be a nice thing that can protect Chronomancer in melee combat, so maybe melee Chronomancer is going to be a thing. However, I still believe that Ascendancies is going to be not that popular compared to a lot of other ones which are played significantly more often and not affected by patch notes at all. And the funny part is Acolyte of Chatyla change. That Ascendancy been very unpopular and pretty weak for a lot of time. So GG decided to change some things about it. And it's probably not what you expect, mostly because Chatyla been relying on Leech a lot. And since Leech is getting nerfed in that patch, GG decided to swap only one thing in the Leech part of the Ascendancy. Right now, Into the Breach skill granted by Walking the Dream notable passive skill will grant 20% of Leech instead of 15. I think that's kinda laughable, and at this point GG just don't want to make Chatyla stronger or playable, so I believe with such changes, Acolyte is still going to be one of the least played Ascendancies whatsoever, especially since only 5% of more Leech is not even going to compensate for a huge Leech nerf that we received. So maybe GG just hates Acolyte at this point. Now let's talk about skill changes. For the skill changes, there's not a lot of swaps as well, a lot of skills are practically staying the same, so I expect meta to be pretty close to what we had in 0.4. However, a few changes are still there. So Bone Shatter, we have a little higher attack speed, so it's small move for melee. Comet is going to have a little different numbers in terms of dealing damage, but I don't really think it's going to affect Comet's build much. The only thing that actually affecting Comet is a Leech nerf, because it will be hard to maintain amount of life, especially if you're going to play a Blood Mage that you need to spend to spam Comets. Cast on Critical is also not really changed, so I still think Comet will be playable up to some degree. Earthquake also receiving a pretty nice bonus, so it's going to deal 666% of attack damage instead of 580 at the maximum gem level. That skill never been too popular, but I think it will find more use right now. And you can't use a weapon swap for Eternal Rage, because they just changed that, so if your build been using it, you probably will need to drop it completely, but I don't think it's going to change much, because in the most cases, Eternal Rage and the weapon swap been just a nice bonus on top of what you already have. Lightning beams no longer be able to chain onto the same target, which is going to affect lightning arrow builds at least a little, but since most of the bow builds are using a different skill for a single target, I think it's not going to be too big of an issue. Surprisingly, but Oil Barrage for Wyvern builds are getting less damage at all levels with Empowered version, but deals more damage at all levels with the normal version. So it's practically going to be almost the same in the end. It's also currently consuming power charge a little faster, but most of the time Oil Barrage is still going to one-shot bosses. They also decided to nerf Rolling Slam a lot for melee. Right now, it's going to deal 543% of attack damage instead of 635. That's a pretty significant nerf, and I believe the potential to slap things with Rolling Slam is lower at the moment. GG also decided to nerf Poison Burst Arrow too. So right now, poison duration will be only 3 seconds, it's been 5 before, and right now with quality you'll get only 10% of magnitude of poison instead of 20, which is pretty decent nerf as well. They're also changing Tempest Bell, which is in my opinion is a pretty decent buff. Now Tempest Bell can be ancestrally boosted, and you will have 3 bells by default instead of 1. Right now it will deal a little less damage from Shockwave, and it will trigger not that often, but having 3 bells by default in my opinion is huge, and it's probably going to be in a lot of builds that utilizing the weapons that work with bells just fine. And another nerf for poison builds, it's Toxic Growth. It right now will fire only 5 Pastels, like it will be 5 instead of 4 previously, but there will be a limit for 5 pastels. Previously the limit built 12. So since amount of pastels you can get will be only 5 instead of 12, I believe it's a huge nerf at the moment. On another hand, GG decided to change Ghost Dance too. So right now it will work a little differently, and it will have a longer downside too. I believe that Ghost Dance been not really that popular before, and with those changes it's going to be even more unpopular. So not a lot of changes for the main skills too, but a few upsides as well. For example, ice tag that we used at our druid builds and some monks use them as well is still alive. As you can see, the bonus damage you are seeing from freezing enemies with beta vengeance is practically cut in half. But it still stays, you're still going to receive a lot of cold damage for practically free. And I think it's a pretty nice thing to use, at least in some druid builds at the moment. So to sum it up, most of the patch notes been fixes and nerfs. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of buffs, and I think most of those will come from new items and new gems that we will receive later. We can also keep in mind that some things might be added to patch notes later, since GG usually adds some additional information there across the last few days. Let me know in the comments if you have any ideas what should be changed, or maybe what's coming, or what you would like to see in the upcoming patches. Thank you very much for watching, and see you